Everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. So I'm Magda Cortez. Thank you for the nice introduction. I consider myself to be an entrepreneurial product manager. I like to work within large organizations and apply some of that startup thinking and challenge some of the status quos with startup processes and ways of working. Today, I'm going to talk to you about bots, NLP, which is natural language processing, and how we apply artificial intelligence to our products at Gumtree. Gumtree was acquired by eBay about 10 years ago. eBay's been acquiring a lot of classified sites across the world. Gumtree did originate in the UK by two Australians 15 years ago. It came to Australia 10 years ago. To celebrate our 10-year birthday, we rebranded recently, so hence the new logo, as well as some additional product features. And some of these I'll talk to you about today, but the focus will specifically be on bots. So we've been hearing a lot about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and bots overall. Essentially, bots have been crawling the internet for years, and they're designed to automate certain tasks. And chatbots, which is what I'll be talking to you about today, are bots that use scripts and algorithms to emulate human conversation within a messaging platform. Now, no chatbot can emulate human conversation, very, very well. Some are doing it. Like I'd say Google's Assistant is probably one of the best out there, but at Gumtree, we're using our own technology, in-house built, to do this. And I'm going to talk about some of the learnings and the journey that we've been through. For us, artificial intelligence has been about learning about human-computer interaction, understand what boundaries can we cross, how people sort of like to be. Like there are certain ways of communicating where sometimes customers want to sort of have certain items automated, and others they do actually want that human intersection and interaction. And for me, I've been at Gumtree now for almost 2 years, and I've been working with this bot technology during this time. Now, our Gumtree robot is called Gumbot, and here's how we're using him. Gumbot appears in certain messages when perhaps a buyer hasn't received a response from a seller. So here's an example of someone looking for a haul table, and after 48 hours they didn't receive a response. So a Gumbot message is interjected, and it basically says, "Seller, looks like the seller hasn't responded, here are similar items." So engagement is very important within the business, and we're using this technology to keep people coming back to the site. And this is actually in an iterative stage, so at the moment the live version is simply the message, and what you see here with the pictures, that will be released next month. But this is sort of how we're working in small bite-sized stages to understand how we can iterate this product. And rather than over-engineering, we're releasing small things to see whether, will people actually click through? So at the moment, similar items in that in the text is highlighted. So we're seeing whether people click through. And because people are clicking through, we're evolving this product. We also use predetermined responses to help people communicate. So when buyers and sellers are reaching out to each other, they can communicate within the tap of a button. This is now seen, this is a common way, more and more we're seeing this in various chats. Our phones are enabling this, sort of predictive test. So at Gumtree, we're doing this. We've developed our own based on neural network technology, and we're looking at conversations that customers have had over the past couple of years to pick out certain phrases. And with those phrases, we've created these buttons. And the reason why we did this is a common customer pain point was, I sometimes find it hard to communicate with people. Or, as a buyer, I reach out to someone and I don't hear back. And so for that use case, Gumbot was introduced. And to help sellers, well, buyers and sellers communicate, we thought if we can enable them to communicate within the touch of a button, we can extend this further along the journey. So if, as a seller, the item has been sold, I can take the user to, okay, remove this listing. We don't want stale listings on the site. Last year, we launched the Facebook chatbot. And this chatbot allows users to search for items. So here's an example of how people can find, for instance, a Toyota Corolla on Gumtree, but within the Facebook Messenger chat. And so when Mark Zuckerberg originally announced this in March last year, he said, we want businesses to be able to communicate with customers the way they do their friends. And we saw that as an opportunity to place our brand within friends and family. And for us, this was sort of the earlier stages to see how people would be using this technology. And at that time, it was also sort of, the idea was that apps are going to die, and this is the new way that people will be using your products. They won't be going to your site, they'll be using products via Facebook. So 18 months along, that isn't the case, but it has been the basis of us to learn about this NLP technology, and also sort of it's helping us with voice technology too, because a lot of these inputs that we've had to put in for the Facebook Messenger bot, we've been able to also apply for voice instances. And today, I'm going to talk to you about how we basically went from idea through to productization of the Gumtree Facebook bot. So it's never an easy journey, and I'll take you through some of the learnings and the pivots that we've had to make whilst coming along this journey. We use a formalized process called DualTrack Agile, which was actually it was formalized by Silicon Valley Product Group, which is headed up by Marty Kagan. So within the product world, Marty Kagan is sort of a guru, and within a few of these organizations like Amazon, they are using this process, and we've been using this process for the past 18 months. And the idea is, well, it's, you've got an idea, going to discovery, so the experimentation and the unknown phase and understanding and learning, through to delivery. And DualTrack Agile is based on Agile. So who here is working with Scrum? Yeah, or Kanban? What about Lean? Yeah, well, DualTrack Agile is a fusion of these. So this isn't like a completely new way of working, it's just a formalized way of everyone across the business to be across what is actually happening. And we actually have a weekly business stand-up where the product managers each present what's in discovery and what's in delivery, and that enables, it's an easy way for us to communicate how we're progressing, what's worked, what hasn't, and it provides that transparency. And we work in 2-week rhythms, so every 2 weeks there's something new to learn or evolve. So as I said, we're going to be talking about the idea, and as we know, ideas are cheap. There are a bunch of assumptions, but they also need to be, no idea is a bad idea unless you test it and actually disprove it. And DualTrack Agile enables us to formulate this. So here we have the idea of how might we use Facebook to help people find items on Gumtree. We chose find because at the time when Facebook Messenger came out, there are certain things that we could do. So there were about 4 things that businesses could do. One was sort of search for things. So domain real estate enabled people to find property. You could sort of gamify certain things. So State of Origin came out with like a quiz, and so on. So we went with finding, because it also matched our business KPI of search. And we use objectives and key results, OKRs, to ensure alignment of these with the business strategy. So OKRs were, Google actually published quite a number of stories around how they use OKRs, and then other businesses such as Atlassian, Accenture, Box, they've also applied the OKR principle. But basically, for us as a business, one of the objectives is to increase engagement. So for me, as a product manager, I need to find ways of creating that engagement. So when users come to the site, we want them to do one of 2 things. Either post an item, so sell something, or inquire about an item. So actually contact a seller. And then the key result here would be, well, how do we grow interaction? So we need people to actually come to the site, look at a few listings, to then be able to find something or think about selling something to actually meet that engagement goal. And we need a testable hypothesis to frame our idea for discovery. And discovery is actually, it can be a long journey. Sometimes various items of discovery, they may take 2 months, but that's okay. We run in 2-week sprints and we iterate each time. Iterate on that same idea, or we may pivot into something slightly different. And once we find a proven winner, we then move it into delivery. And then those lines there are sprints. This method allows us to do the opportunity assessment, to understand how people use basically the story maps, so use cases, because we may go in sort of thinking people want to do this, and then they don't actually want to do that, or they use a part of that. So it helps with that story mapping, and we always make sure that there's a percentage behind the of what we're trying to achieve before we move on, or we always time box things. So we're going to give ourselves a month or 3 sprints, which is 6 weeks, to test this, and if it doesn't work, we're not pursuing this idea. So in this case, the hypothesis was, if we built a Facebook bot to help users find things, we'll drive traffic to the site, and we'll know we're right, because a percentage of users, it could be 5, 9, 12, 15, right? But there is a number there that allows users will actually look at 2 or more listings. And we work with analysts to identify that percentage. Without a percentage, we do not run experiments, because we need benchmarks. So in this case, we were able to use, we already have a Facebook page, so we were able to use Facebook referrers to sort of see what the behaviors are of users who actually come from Facebook through to Gumtree, to see how many page views they consume versus, say, gumtree.com.au, and they perform a search. And we were able to do benchmarks. For other sort of more radical ideas, we may look at industry reports. And so we use information from various sources, as well as our cousins from other eBay classifieds groups, whether that's in Canada, UK, South Africa, or so on. But we try to find that number, and we stick with that number. And if that number is fairly close, we'll keep working. If not, we squash the idea. So the discovery, our first experiment, was to have users communicate with Gumtree via Facebook. Now, our Facebook business page has been around since Facebook created business pages, but we didn't enable the messaging part of that product because we just couldn't manage the amount of amount of messages that were coming through. And as a process, we want people to come through our systems. So go through the Gumtree, basically CRM site, and have customer support be there and answer questions within a couple hours' time, whereas Facebook was just another channel that they had to manage. And that was a few years ago, right? But then behaviours changed. And what we did was we actually opened up Facebook Messenger for 6 hours, so about a full day, to see what would people do. How would people communicate? Why would they come to Facebook to then want to communicate with Gumtree? And it was quite early on, so remember at the start I said the idea was to help users find items. Well, they actually came to Gumtree for customer support. So that was one of our assumptions that we squashed very early on. And we understood that by not even generating any code. It was just opening up the channel to see how people communicated. Once we learnt that, the development team then created an unbranded Facebook page and basically enabled basic find capabilities and basic customer support. And we released that to our staff internally, which was about 70 people. To sort of, not all 70 participated, but a big chunk of them were excited by this technology. Some didn't even know what they were doing or what it was, but we basically guided people. And we wanted to see how these people interacted. And because they're also Gumtree customers, we use our own products. And we wanted to see how people actually interacted. And once we gathered that information, we made further iterations and then re-released it another 2 weeks and then saw that we had to do a few other things. So that's experiment 2, 3, and 4. So there were a few goes that we actually opened this up. And we apply, in general, for discovery, we use lean product development of build, measure, learn. So we'll build something, release it, see what the performance is like, gather the learnings, and iterate. And we use this same technology to develop the NLP and the forms of AI. And once we were comfortable and the business was comfortable at a certain stage, we were able to deliver and release to market. Now with Facebook, we don't have the luxury of doing discovery behind an A/B test, which is why we had to create the C3PO unbranded version and release to internal staff, because Facebook basically is 0% or 100, and for us to go 100% was high risk, which is why we did it this way. But yeah, basically, here's what we learned. Bots are best when they serve a specific function. So try to limit free form. Right? Users could ask for certain things, why is the sky blue, and so on. But that's not what our bot is designed to do, nor is it programmed to do this. So guide the user. So ours was, with the onboarding, we had a little introduction. Hi, I'm Gumbot. I can help you find or search for things. And this is actually we still have a version of this, but one of the other learnings here is people don't read. So even though it says here, I can help you find or help you with help, most people were just writing paragraphs, almost like an email. So we had to put a few other rules in place. And not only that, actually, so internally, when we asked people to find things on the Facebook bot, people were putting things just like a table, and the bot didn't know what to do. So we actually had to put search for or find, and we actually sort of had to give them a guideline, search for, and search meant go to the Gumtree database to bring up these things. Otherwise, the bot said, I'm just a baby bot, I don't know what you're actually after. And these are the things that, and in some instances, if you use the bot, you may still come across this. But for us, we actually have access to this information, and we continuously iterate and improve it. Wall Street Journal has included these sort of buttons, which also sets the expectation from the start and guides the user with exactly what they can do. So they can't just ask, is the sky blue? They can either get latest news, markets, or help. Building a bot is easy. And we actually got one up and running within a week and a bit. But building an intelligent bot was a challenge. And it did take, it took 3 months by the time we actually released it, and we used a very small team. There's a handful of people involved in this. The reason for that was, first, we didn't know whether people would actually use it, and we didn't want to invest too many resources into that, and even the handful of people, they weren't on this full time. So it really was something that we released to market very early on, just to sort of see how people interact. But for us, it was to get out there and understand, how do people actually use this? But in essence, bots are actually glorified flowcharts. The reality is, artificial intelligence still has a long way to go. With conversational bots, there's various nuances. There's humour that they don't understand the same way that we do. Sarcasm, cultural references. So Gumtree is an Australian brand, but there's also Gumtree UK, Gumtree South Africa. And some of these cultural references vary, and the bot doesn't know the difference. There's also Gumtree in Poland. So if we were to build one, we also have to consider language as a factor. So it is very early, and that's why we're still learning a lot about this. But here's an example of a nuance that I've encountered, and this was during our very early discovery stages. So we had someone from our customer support team basically copy and paste part of a conversation here. It's a real conversation from a user, but that's not the actual user's picture. And they're basically, they're questioning about, they've got a question about fees for job listings. And they say thanks, and the bot replies, "You're welcome." The person, the customer support, "Thanks for your sarcasm. I'm pretty sure that you do the same with all your customers who complained." And the bot replies again, "You are welcome." So the bot here has taken thanks, and thanks equals "you're welcome." And it's basically omitted. So it's still very, very early development. Even though there were jobs was a keyword that was programmed, thanks had a higher weighting than any others. And luckily we squashed that in in the tests with the staff. But these things still do happen. News Corp, they released a bot for Anzac Day, and the journalists had access to Archie Barwick's diaries, and they created stories around them. They had intern journalists ask questions, and they basically created a Facebook bot that allowed people to ask Archie Barwick certain questions about the war. Now imagine this. Did someone shoot you? Versus, did you shoot someone? Identical words, two very different meanings. So these are the things that human input needs to actually make sure you get right. Because if the bot looked at shoot or shoot someone, or, the answer could be the same, but wrong context. So with most bots that I've encountered, whether it's the domain one, whether it's Poncho, the weather app, Domino's Pizza, even our own, it's an MVP. Minimum viable personality. Those who maybe understand MVP, it's usually a minimum viable product. But for chatbots, I like to say it's the personality, because it doesn't quite get it right all the time. And that's where, with your brands, think about the tone of voice. This is an opportunity for you to insert your brand's personality. What would your brand be if it were a human? How would it respond? How does your customer support respond to things? So, when you are looking at going down the chatbot route, whether it is a chatbot within your site or within Facebook, consider that tone of voice. And then there are other things you can do that, little delighters. So certain chatbots have Easter eggs. On Gumtree, you might be able to find your Prince or Princess Charming, or maybe that unicorn of an employee. But just remember to sort of, have a bit of fun as long as it's within your brand's tone of voice and legal guidelines. And artificial intelligence, which I've learned, and I'm sure you've heard in some of the presentations earlier this morning, yesterday, and later this afternoon, it's a combination of new elements with old. So with the Gumtree chatbot, we did use NLP technology provided by Facebook or Google's API.ai to insert these, the keywords, the associations, intents, but we also used our own existing search algorithm, our search capabilities with this. So we've had existing technology that we've been able to point some of these keywords and intents to. And for us, it's, as a team, AI isn't about replacing humans, it's about supporting them. So some of the key takeouts. With most of the items, you don't need to run a test. You don't need to code to be able to run a test. You can test various things using prototypes. Or there are actually various products out there that enable, they're sort of like templated. Yeah. Wix, for instance, does very easy landing pages, and it's all sort of, what would you like to do? Select an image, and it's basically drag and drop. So you don't need to code to actually be able to prove something. Experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment, and experiment early. As long as you have supporting data, you need that benchmark to understand what is it that you're trying to move, and how does it align with your business objective. So that's where OKRs help us within the business. Keep it simple. So with a lot of ideas, they often start off with a seed, and then we could do this and that and that. And imagine with the Facebook chatbot, we could post things, we could help people price their items, obviously find and do customer support, but we can't do all of this, otherwise we over-engineer and we don't even know what people actually want. So start small, keep it simple. And if you are creating some sort of chatbot for customer support or another functionality of your business, inject that brand personality. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Magda. We have plenty of time for some questions, so up the back there.
Okay. Yeah, so the question was, how do we tailor responses based on, say, location? So if you're looking for a car, it doesn't show you cars Australia-wide, it may show you cars within the Middle Park region, which is where we are today. So we prompt the bot to do, so basically the first one is, you could search for a Toyota Corolla in Middle Park, and we can serve the results. Or if you haven't placed a location, the bot will then ask, where would you like to find this? So it is like a conversation, perhaps, as you would, like you and I. So I'd like to find a Porsche. Okay, where? Which area are you in? Well, I'm from Sydney. Okay, let me see what I can find in Sydney for you. So there are steps. So we've catered to both if it's in one string or in, if something's incomplete for the bot to then probe. Doesn't always quite get it right because there are certain regions, but if, for instance, there was a Middle Park in Perth as well as Victoria, it would show, did you mean Middle Park WA or Middle Park Vic? And then a user selects.
Question?
Have you guys ever done any experience with sentimental analysis? So for example, like your example before, when the customer was very stressful because the bot just keeps saying like you're welcome. So you can mention like how stressful they are and then just abort the conversation and just
Yeah, sentiment. No, that's still very early. We have quite a large customer support team, so we actually have something like 70 people. That's code, marketing, sales, management, product, plus we have 35 customer support team. So we actually have that plus, and they are able to jump in, and that's what we're doing at the moment. But we haven't implemented anything like that at this stage. What we have done for the bot is if we sense if someone is using certain keywords, maybe keywords of frustration, then we do sort of say, okay, the best place for you to get help immediately is here, and we point them to a website. It's still a learning journey, but no, we haven't been able to do that. At one stage we would like to. We are using sentiment within conversations though between buyers and sellers to see at what point can we interject certain messages. So for instance, if someone is asking about post, to be able to serve postage details of costings and so on.
I'm just interested with, are you looking at any authentication through Messenger at all? Like at the moment it wouldn't be authenticated through Gumtree, I don't imagine.
No. No authentication. We want people to, well, the belief at Gumtree is that it's a classified site, and originally classifieds was available to anyone and everyone. So you don't need to log in to be able to search for things. Once you if you want to contact someone, we do. But to be able to find items, no. And to be able to reach out for customer support, you don't need to. But with the Facebook bot, you're already logged in as yourself. If you use your own name on Facebook, we can see that it's Magda Cortez on Facebook. But we don't have any other information apart from that available. So you can contact Facebook, the Gumtree Facebook Messenger right now, if you'd like, without logging in.
Are you looking to have any authentication? Do you think that a bot may help someone actually join Gumtree?
Possibly in the later stages, but at the moment it's not part of the business's priorities. So the business wants to continue to grow. At the moment, you'd say we are a 10-year-old business, but we want to maintain that, and by creating a login, so it would actually, it's a barrier of entry, and we don't necessarily want to do that right now. We also don't see that there's a particular need for that, and customers aren't asking for that. So, from a business perspective, we probably would benefit from the data because we could ask users for certain pieces of information and then be able to maybe target them. But we don't want to do that right now. We want to keep it open and let people communicate with us or use the product like they would have when there were newspapers. Yeah, to that point, we're not using Facebook to authenticate. If someone does want to communicate with, so for instance, when we saw the image of the car conversation, so here we've got a Toyota in Newtown. Here's what they found. If a user was to, can't see that. if a user was to click on that, they actually get taken to our site. And that's important for the business, is to be able to go back to our site, and then if they do want to communicate with that seller, they would need to log in. And at that point, we have some of their information. Yeah. But we want to keep that safety from Facebook, I guess.
Just interested with Messenger too, because I think they are heading down a path with some real good web views now too. So sort of investigating instead of hosting a bot, maybe the bot can host us.
Yeah.
Another question down here.
Oh, yep.
So you made a statement that, NLP, you're doing it yourself, but why aren't you not using something like IBM Watson and comparable, Alexa, Katana? They're all perfected most of what you need to convert unstructured to structured.
Yes. No, well, we are using, for instance, API.ai. So we are using some of these, but we're also using our own, so it's a blend. We're not just solely using our own. Gumbot is our own because it is within our own messaging platform. And to be able to incorporate, say, an Amazon product or else, I don't think we would do that strategically from a business sense, one. But two, it would probably take us longer. So we are using a fusion of these, and we are using, as I said, API.ai is one that we're using.
So you wouldn't consider, for example, integrating your bot into Google Home or Alexa or similar products, which is where voice.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely. Google Home, yes. It's actually in progress. Yeah. So.
Okay, one more question. Last one.
Yes.
How are you tracking or measuring the influence of your Gumbot on customer experience?
So the customer support team has certain KPIs where if, for instance, in this conversation, a user then has to result to customer support, once they go through to our customer support, when it's actually on Messenger, we can't measure that. That's quite difficult. I don't think it's even possible. But once they come to our site and their help, they provide us the method that they want to be contacted by and have a response to that certain inquiry, we do have limits of how long customer support has to turn that around. But it's only available on our site. It's not on Messenger. And to actually be quite frank, the Facebook Messenger isn't our, so we launched it last year. It's been around for just over a year now, and it still isn't our main channel for customer support. Users still come to our site and search for customer support. And we've, as part of the rebrand, we actually made customer support more prominent, so they can find support 24/7, and we also have the live chat functionality. But with the live chat, they are actually chatting to a human until we work out what system we want to go down, whether it's something, being eBay, some things actually do take a long time because of InfoSec and making sure of these securities. So this was like a temporary thing, and it was a way into experiment with social media. And I guess for millennials, what would millennials do? So it's sort of a new market, or the next after millennials, to see how they would experiment with things or use our products.
So you made a statement that when the bot gets confused, you're trying to redirect the user elsewhere. Have you considered interjecting human conversations?
Oh, yes, and they can actually, yes. They can, so in this, at any point, customer support team can jump in and say, thank you for helping us with our Facebook robot. We're still in the early stages. I'm here to help you.
They take over the conversation.
They do, yeah. But it's not timed. We don't have a KPI to measure that. So for most efficient way to get customer support is actually through our site. But Facebook bot, yeah, you'll get a response, but probably within 24 hours, not within 4 hours, for instance, or 2 hours, or whatever it is. Yeah. Because it's not our main channel for customer support.
Are you using live chat on your site already?
Yes.
So why didn't
That live chat is human chat, so it's not a bot chat like other businesses. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the Facebook chatbot is more the programmed way of answering questions. The chat on our site is actually human to human.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. So please thank Magda once again.